This is section 4.5 practice A. This is the back of the worksheet. We're going to decide whether there's enough information given to prove that the triangles are congruent using HL. Now remember, HL looks exactly like the AS postulate, except the angles need to be right angles. So in a right triangle you have congruent hypotenuses and congruent legs. That's the idea. So the first thing you need to have is right triangles. We do have right triangles. The next thing you need are congruent hypotenuses and congruent legs. Okay. Well, I notice that these are congruent legs. These sides are legs because they touch the right angles. You also have segment HJ on both triangles. That's the hypotenuse for both triangles. You have congruent hypotenuses and congruent legs in right triangles. That means these are definitely congruent triangles by HL. Now, if you come over here to number 12, there's no guaranteeing that these are right triangles, so you can't use HL. These are congruent angles, but they definitely aren't right angles. They look very obtuse to me. So this is AS, which is the same thing that HL is, except it's AS because there's no right angles. So these are not congruent by HL, and they're not congruent necessarily either. 13 through 15, let's state the third congruence that must be given to prove that the two triangles are congruent. Use the indicated postulate or theorem. So you can use any of your shortcuts, side, 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 side angle side, or HL. If you want to use the pictures, you can. Angle B is congruent to angle E, so maybe I'll mark those. Segment BC is congruent to segment EF, so I'll mark those as well. Now let's say I want them to be congruent by side angle side. What other information needs to be true? Well, I need these angles to be included, so I need these segments to be congruent here. So you would need segment BA congruent to segment ED. Number 14, kind of already made some marks on the picture, so that would be kind of confusing to look at it. I could use a different color, or I could redraw the pictures, or I guess you could erase if you use pencil. I use pen. You want to use side, side, side here. Here's a pair of congruent sides, here's a pair of congruent sides, you need another pair of congruent sides. Okay, so segment AB congruent to segment DE, segment BC congruent to segment EF, you need segment AC to be congruent to segment DF. Number 15, we want to use HL. Okay, so you need angle A is a right angle, and angle A is congruent to angle D, so that makes angle D a right angle as well. You have segment AC congruent to segment DF, so those are congruent legs. You also need congruent hypotenuses. So segment BC needs to be congruent to, that's a B, that looks really, really bad. Segment BC needs to be congruent to segment EF. Number 16, suppose you have two skateboard ramps. What information do you know to prove that the triangular ramps are congruent using side angle side? What about HL? Well, they don't give you any skateboard ramps, but I could definitely draw some skateboard ramps. Let's say there's two skateboard ramps. You want to show that these are congruent by side angle side. Well, maybe I could measure that part. It's got to be the same as that part. I'm going to measure this. Ooh. See if it's the same as that. And then you need congruent angles in between. That's side angle side. They're basically asking you to draw two triangles congruent by side angle side. Draw two triangles congruent by HL. Well, you need right triangles. You need congruent hypotenuses. You need a pair of congruent legs. That's HL.